Hey everyone, this is Michael again, and welcome to the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Smackdown tonight was from the Mohegan Sun Arena in Uncasville, Connecticut, while Rampage was taped from the Paso County Coliseum in El Paso, Texas. And Smackdown tonight, aside from the tag team match where we had JEY USO end up returning tonight after he ended up walking away from the bloodline from Roman Reigns and Jey Uso and Solo Sikoa after they end up attacking Sami Zayn at the Royal Rumble. JEY USO ended up returning. Him and Jimmy end up taking on Braun, Strowman, and Ricochet for the Undisputed WWE Tag Team Championship. Aside from that match, SmackDown was absolutely horrendous tonight. Horrendous. So we had Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus Hit Row, Ashante the Adonis, and Top Dollar. Lacey Evans was in action and she taking on Cameron Harris. We also had a Fatal 4-Way match where it was Madcap Moss versus Rey Mysterio versus Karrion Kross versus Santos Escobar. And the winner of that match will get to face Gunther next week on SmackDown for the Intercontinental Championship. Which that was the main event tonight of SmackDown, the Fatal 4-Way. But overall, horrendous show this was. But let's jump right into the review. SmackDown opened up tonight with Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was standing in the ring, holding the Undisputed WWE Universal Championship. Paul Heyman ended up saying that he is out to drop a few pearls of wisdom. He ended up saying ever since he and Brock Lesnar conquered The Undertaker's undefeated streak at WrestleMania 30, he doesn't offer predictions. He delivers spoilers. And Paul Heyman ended up saying that he has a bunch of them tonight. Paul Heyman ended up saying that the Island of Relevancy is under attack. And on SmackDown, the number one challenger at the Elimination Chamber is Sami Zayn. Paul Heyman then ended up calling Sami Zayn a psychopathic rebel. He ended up saying that the first spoiler of the evening is that Sami Zayn is not here because the crowd ended up chanting for Sami. So Paul Heyman ended up saying, imagine Sami Zayn as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion. So Paul Heyman ended up talking about Monday Night Raw and the Royal Rumble winner, Cody Rhodes. Paul Heyman ended up saying that Cody backed him into a corner on Raw. He ended up calling Cody a dumbass. And he ended up saying that it couldn't be more personal. The two titles are not wrestling championships. He ended up calling them the centerpiece of the Island of Relevancy. Paul Heyman ended up saying that it's the plasma that runs through the veins of the bloodline, the reason for their existence. So Paul Heyman ended up calling the titles the Tribe, in which Roman Reigns is the chief. So Paul Heyman ended up saying that Sami Zayn at the Elimination Chamber, Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. Without the two titles, there is no Island of Relevancy. And that there is no bloodline. There is no him. There is no Paul Heyman. And there is no Roman Reigns. Or as Paul Heyman would go, Roman Reigns. So Sami Zayn stood behind Paul Heyman. He was in a black hoodie. The fans were chanting Sami. So Sami Zayn was there tonight, to which Paul Heyman ended up saying that he wasn't. So Paul Heyman turned around and he was shocked. Sami Zayn extended his arm, won the mic. Paul Heyman gave Sami the mic. Sami Zayn ended up telling Paul Heyman to calm down. He ended up saying that he is nervous, but he won't hurt him. Sami Zayn ended up saying, but if he wanted to, he could have by now. And He kept saying that's a little weird that he is talking about the bloodline. But if he wanted to, he could have dropped him like a bag of dirt, and no one is there to protect him. He kept saying that if this was a month ago, Solo Sikoa would have been there and hit him with the Samoan spike, or the Usos would have been there. He kept saying now Paul Heyman is there all by himself, and he thinks Paul Heyman knows why. He kept saying because they all know that Roman's days as the undisputed WWE Universal Champion are numbered. Sami Zayn ended up telling Paul Heyman that Roman is off the rails, and the walls are closing in. Sami then ended up telling Paul Heyman that he left the bloodline, and that JEY USO walked out on his own. He kept asking Paul Heyman, what happens next? What will Jimmy Uso do next? Will he side with his cousin or his twin brother? He kept saying, what will happen with Solo Sikoa? And even Paul Heyman, the wise man. He kept saying that the way he looks at Roman Reigns is a little weird. But now, here he is talking about life after Roman Reigns, after the titles are gone. Sami Zayn ended up telling Paul Heyman that he knows that the bloodline is on its way out. He kept telling Paul Heyman that he knows he is in the business of spoilers, and here is one. Sami ended up telling Paul Heyman that Roman has 8 days left as undisputed WWE Universal Champion. Paul Heyman ended up extending his arm for the mic. Sami ended up grabbing Paul Heyman, and Sami Zayn ended up hugging him. And while Sami Zayn hugged Paul Heyman, he ended up telling Heyman to tell Roman that he doesn't need to worry about Cody, because he is going to be the one to take him down. Sami ended up dropping the mic, and that was that. Overall, this was a very meh segment, in my opinion. You know, Sami Zayn coming out there saying, you know, oh, I'm going to be the one to take down Roman Reigns and win the titles. No, Sami Zayn is not going to take the undisputed WWE Universal Championship off of Roman Reigns. But overall, this was a very meh segment. And then we had Drew McIntyre and Sheamus versus Hit Row. This was the first match of the night. And this match was just a squash match, in my opinion. So McIntyre delivered the Glasgow kiss to Ashante the Adonis. McIntyre then delivered a belly-to-belly to Ashante. McIntyre ended up going for the Claymore, but Top Dollar dragged Ashante to the outside. Sheamus then tagged in. He ended up running to the outside. He ended up hitting a shoulder block to Ashante. And Sheamus then threw Ashante into the ring. Sheamus then got in the ring, and Ashante delivered a drop kick to Sheamus. Ashante then grabbed Sheamus, but Sheamus ended up delivering a Irish Curse backbreaker to Ashante, and he ended up throwing him onto the ring apron. Top Dollar ended up going for a right hand, but Sheamus moved out of the way, and he ended up hitting Top Dollar with the knee. Sheamus then delivered the 10 beats of the bottom to Ashante. Sheamus was in the ring. He grabbed Ashante, and he delivered the white noise on him. Top Dollar got into the ring. McIntyre then ended up hitting him with the Claymore. Sheamus then ended up hitting Ashante with the Brogue Kick. Sheamus went for the cover, and there you go. Drew McIntyre and Sheamus ended up winning the match. Overall, squash match this was. Post-match, we had the Viking Raiders, you know, with the vignette, and they're telling McIntyre and Sheamus that next week is their destiny. So pretty much that was basically that. And then we went backstage. Jimmy Uso was on the phone. He was trying to call Jay, but Jay wouldn't even answer the phone. Jimmy ended up saying that tonight is the night, and for Jay to call him back when he gets the message. So pretty much that was basically that. Jimmy just calling Jay, saying that, oh, we have a match tonight, and the titles are on the line. And then we had Karrion Kross. Karrion Kross was backstage with Scarlett. He ended up saying tonight's Fatal 4-Way is his. Scarlett then ended up saying that Karrion Kross knows what he has to do, and she wants to hear him say it. Karrion Kross then looked at Scarlett, ended up saying that he's going to make Rey Mysterio suffer, and he is going to put him down. So that was what Karrion Kross had to say. And then we had Lacey Evans versus Cameron Harris. This was another squash match. So Lacey Evans delivered a waistlock takedown on Harris, followed up by a kick. So Lacey delivered a forearm to Harris. She ended up slamming her face first into the second turnbuckle. She ended up slamming Harris into the opposite turnbuckle. Evans started doing push-ups in the middle of the ring, just showing off. Lacey then delivered the woman's right, and she ended up locking in the Cobra Clutch onto Harris. And there you go. Lacey Evans ended up winning the match. Moving on, we saw Jimmy Uso backstage. And he was once again trying to call Jay, but it went right to voicemail. Paul Heyman ended up coming and he ended up telling Jimmy, oh, I take it that means that Jay didn't reach you yet. So Jimmy ended up telling Paul Heyman that he tried calling Jay's wife. He tried sending Jay an email, texted him, and he still hasn't responded. So Paul Heyman ended up telling Jimmy that he was out there in the ring, and he was held hostage by Sami Zayn. And now one member of the Bloodline was out there. Of course, Roman Reigns wasn't on the show tonight. Even Solo Sikoa wasn't on the show. So Paul Heyman ended up asking Jimmy where he was. So Jimmy ended up saying that he was trying to call Jay, and Solo Sikoa wasn't even out there. So Jimmy ended up telling Paul Heyman that he can defend the titles with him, and Paul Heyman ended up saying that he will have to defend them alone. So Jimmy ended up saying that his brother will be here tonight. So pretty much that was basically that. And then we went backstage, and we saw Sonya Deville. Sonya Deville was once again arguing with Adam Pearce, and then in came Chelsea Green. Chelsea Green ended up asking Adam Pearce where the SmackDown manager is, as she has to file a complaint against him. So Adam Pearce ended up telling Chelsea Green that's him. So Chelsea Green ended up saying that she has facial amnesia. And she ended up asking if Adam Pearce was discriminating against her. So Adam Pearce ended up saying that both Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville want special treatment. And he ended up telling them, you have to earn it. So Adam Pearce ended up saying that Sonya and Chelsea will team up against Liv Morgan and Smiley Raquel Rodriguez, later on tonight. So, pretty much that was that. And then we had the Usos versus Braun Strowman and Ricochet, Smackdown Undisputed Tag Team Championship on the line. So we had Braun Strowman and Ricochet end up coming out first. And then Jimmy Uso end up walking down to the ring alone. So Samantha Irving announced that Jimmy is the sole competitor. But Jimmy ended up cutting her off. So then we saw JEY USO was seen making his way through the crowd. He walked down the stairs and he jumped the rail. Jay got into the ring. Him and Jimmy ended up hugging. So the match got underway, which this was a very good match here. You know, this was the only good thing about SmackDown tonight was this match. So the match got underway. Jay and Ricochet went at it. So Jay delivered a shoulder tackle to Ricochet, knocking him down. Jey delivered a flying clothesline to Ricochet. Jimmy then tagged in, and the Usos ended up double teaming on Ricochet. So Jimmy ended up headbutting Ricochet. Ricochet ended up running to the ropes, and he delivered a back elbow to Jimmy's face. Ricochet ended up going for the cover, and Jimmy ended up kicking out. Ricochet locked in a headlock on Jimmy. Strowman then tagged in. So both Strowman and Ricochet end up double teaming on Jimmy. Strowman slammed Jimmy into the corner, and he delivered a right hand to Jimmy, and then he slammed Jimmy into the corner. Ricochet tagged in, and Strowman ended up throwing Ricochet into Jimmy. Ricochet then ended up going for the cover. Jimmy ended up kicking out, and he rolled to the outside of the ring. So the Usos end up regrouping on the outside. Ricochet got back into the ring. He tripped Jimmy and ended up hitting Jimmy with the standing moonsault, which looked awesome. You know, Ricochet does really great moonsaults. So Ricochet ended up going for the cover. Jimmy kicked out. Ricochet then delivered a elbow drop onto Jimmy. He grabbed Jimmy, but Jimmy ended up pushing Ricochet into the corner, tagged Jey in. So once again, the Usos double teamed on Ricochet. Jey delivered a kick, and Ricochet ended up falling to the outside. So then as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Jey was in control of the match. Jey delivered an uppercut on Ricochet. Jimmy then tagged in. He ran towards Ricochet, but Ricochet ended up hitting Jimmy with a drop kick. Ricochet tried to make the tag, but Jimmy grabbed Ricochet's arm. Jimmy then throwed Ricochet into the ropes. Ricochet then delivered a springboard crossbody off the second rope to Jimmy. So Strowman ended up tagging in. Strowman delivered a shoulder tackle to Jey, to which Jey also ended up tagging in. So Strowman and Jey went at it. So Strowman ended up knocking Jimmy off the ring apron. Strowman delivered a splash in the corner to Jey. Strowman ended up going for the cover, and Jey ended up kicking out. Strowman then ran towards Jey, but Jey ended up lowering the top rope, and Strowman went to the outside. So Jey delivered a kick onto Strowman, which he followed up with a suicide dive. Jey delivered a kick to Strowman, and then he ended up throwing Strowman into the ring. Jey delivered a crossbody off the top rope, and he ended up going for the cover. Strowman kicked out. So later on, we had Strowman going to the outside. He ended up running towards Jey. Jey moved out of the way. Strowman ended up hitting the commentary table, and Ricochet flied over the top rope onto Jey on the outside. Ricochet climbed to the top rope, but Jimmy delivered a right hand. Jimmy was on the second rope. Jey tagged himself in. Ricochet then pushed Jimmy down. Ricochet then delivered a shooting star press, and as he landed, Jey delivered a splash onto Ricochet. So Jey ended up going for the cover, and there you go. The Usos end up winning the match, retaining the SmackDown Undisputed Tag Team Championship. Overall, this was a very good, entertaining match here. You know, the Usos still retain the titles, and, you know, they're going to be losing the titles, you know, at WrestleMania once, you know, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn get back together. And Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are going to be the ones to face the Usos at WrestleMania for the titles. And I sense, you know, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn taking the titles off of the Usos at WrestleMania. And then we have Rey Mysterio end up cutting a promo backstage. He was talking about Karrion Kross, to which he called Karrion Kross a disgrace. So pretty much that was that. And then we had Natalya in the ring. So Natalya ended up cutting a promo. Yeah, very boring. She ended up cutting a promo talking about winning the Elimination Chamber. She ended up saying Shayna Baszler will go back to carrying Ronda's bag. So Shayna Baszler ended up coming out. Shayna ended up saying that she was competing and signed to WWE before Ronda Rousey. She kept saying that she doesn't need Natalya or anyone to tell her that she is living in Ronda's shadow. So Ronda Rousey ended up coming out. Ronda Rousey returned to SmackDown tonight. And she got into the ring. She got in Shayna's face. And Ronda started to walk towards Natalya. But Shayna ended up stopping her. So Shayna delivered a right hand onto Natalya. Both Shayna and Ronda Rousey ended up double teaming on Natalya. And out came Shotzi. Shotzi came out. She ended up kicking Shayna in the face. She delivered right hands onto Ronda. Shayna then ended up throwing Shotzi to the outside. And Shayna delivered a running kick onto Natalya's shoulder. And pretty much that was basically that. Overall, this was very boring. This was absolutely a boring segment. And then we saw JEY USO. JEY USO was walking backstage. He was leaving the arena. He ended up seeing Sami Zayn standing there. Sami Zayn ended up welcoming JEY USO back. He ended up telling Jay that he can't imagine what he is going through. He ended up saying that he just knows Roman and Jay knows him even better. And he can't imagine Roman letting him forget what he did at the Rumble. Sami Zayn ended up saying that it meant the world to him. But they are 8 days away from something huge. Something that he knows that Jay has wanted to see for a long time. Sami Zayn ended up telling Jay Roman is going down. And that Jay doesn't have to go down with the ship. So Sami Zayn ended up telling Jay there's a way out for him. He ended up telling Jay that he acknowledges him. So Sami ended up going for a fist bump to Jay. Jay ended up telling Sami he better get out of here. So then Sami Zayn and Jay ended up fist bumping, and pretty much that was that. Well, it looks like Jay, might be, acknowledging Sami Zayn, and Sami Zayn is acknowledging Jay. So, and then we had LA Knight. LA Knight was backstage with Mega Morant, and Mega Morant ended up telling LA Knight that we haven't seen him since the Royal Rumble. So LA Knight ended up saying that they are not talking about the pitch black match. He ended up saying that Bray Wyatt is in the past, and he wants to talk about the future. And the future is LA Knight. And then he walked off, and pretty much that was that. But LA Knight is just awesome. So what's next for LA Knight? And then we had Chelsea Green and Sonya Deville versus Smiley Raquel Rodriguez, and her pearly Colgate teeth, and Liv Morgan. This was absolutely terrible. This was boring. So the match got underway. Sonya delivered a clothesline on Liv Morgan. Sonya ended up running towards Liv. Liv ended up hitting Sonya with a drop kick. Liv Morgan then delivered a back elbow in the corner to Sonya, which she followed up with a knee to Sonya's face. Liv got on the second rope. She ended up jumping off the second rope, but Sonya ended up hitting her with a knee to the face. Sonya ended up going for the cover. Liv ended up kicking out. Chelsea Green then tagged in. She ended up throwing Liv face first to the second turnbuckle. Chelsea ended up going for the cover, and Liv ended up kicking out. Sonya then tagged in, and Sonya and Chelsea ended up double teaming on Liv Morgan. So Sonya ended up running towards Liv, but Liv ended up kicking Sonya in the face. So we had Liv ended up trying to make the tag to Raquel, but Sonya ended up throwing Liv across the ring. Liv then delivered a right hand to Sonya. Sonya then distracted the referee as Chelsea ended up grabbing Liv by the head. Sonya ended up going for a right hand to Liv Morgan. Liv Morgan moved out of the way, and Sonya ended up hitting Chelsea Green, as Chelsea ended up getting off the apron. So Liv ended up taking in Raquel. Raquel ended up hitting Sonya with the clothesline, and then she delivered a fallaway slam to Sonya. Raquel then climbed to the second rope and delivered a corkscrew elbow. She ended up going for the cover, but Sonya ended up grabbing the ropes. Sonya then tagged Chelsea into the match. Chelsea didn't want to get into the ring, so Raquel grabbed Chelsea and threw her into the ring. Chelsea ended up running towards Raquel, but she moved out of the way. Chelsea ended up accidentally knocking Sonya off the apron. So Raquel then delivered the Tejada Bomb onto Chelsea. Liv then tagged in. She ended up hitting Chelsea with the Oblivion. Raquel then lifted Liv up and powerbombed Liv onto Chelsea. Liv ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Raquel Rodriguez and Liv Morgan ended up winning the match. And Chelsea Green continues to job. Why does she re-sign with the company? I don't know. But overall, awful match this was. Terrible. And then we have Michael Cole. Michael Cole was interviewing the SmackDown Women's Champion, Charlotte Flair. This was an interview that they did earlier. Michael Cole ended up saying that 3 years ago, she won the Royal Rumble, but Rhea Ripley changed her. And Michael Cole ended up saying now Rhea thinks it's her time to shine and rise. To which Charlotte ended up telling Michael Cole that that was 3 years ago, and that Rhea chose her because she knew that she was the mountain she had to climb, that being her meant you would be at the top. Charlotte ended up saying that she was impressed, but Rhea was young, and Charlotte ended up saying that she won. And now Rhea is telling them that now she is ready, but she would hope she is ready. Charlotte then ended up saying 3 years later, she is still saying the same thing, and that there are levels to this, and that she said 3 years ago, and she is saying it again. So Michael Cole ended up asking Charlotte if Rhea is on her level. Charlotte then ended up telling Michael Cole that it would take more than 3 years to get Rhea to her level. Charlotte ended up saying that she taught her a lesson 3 years ago, and on April 1st, she will put Rhea in her place, once and for all. And pretty much that was basically that. That was the interview with Charlotte from Michael Cole. Main event. The Fatal 4-Way match. Rey Mysterio versus Karrion Kross versus Madcap Moss versus Santos Escobar. And the winner of this match will get to face Gunther next week for the Intercontinental Championship. And this was just very meh, in my opinion. Because wait until you hear who won this match. And I'm like, what? Really? So we had the match get underway. Madcap Moss and Santos Escobar end up fighting on one side. Karrion Kross and Rey end up fighting on the other side. Madcap end up throwing Santos to the outside. Kross ended up throwing Madcap to the outside. Kross then slammed Rey into the turnbuckle. Santos ended up getting into the ring. He walked towards Rey, but Kross ended up telling him off. Kross then grabbed Rey, and Santos ended up pushing Rey away. Kross ended up throwing Santos to the outside of the ring. Kross ended up placing Rey on the top rope. Kross ended up climbing to the second rope, but Rey ended up delivering a headbutt to Kross. Rey then delivered a jumping senton to Kross. He ended up running to the ropes, but Kross delivered a boot to Rey's face. Santos got in the ring and delivered a chop to Kross's chest. Rey ended up running towards Santos, but he ended up throwing Rey onto Kross. Madcap got into the ring. Moss ended up grabbing Rey, ended up hitting him with a fallaway slam onto Santos Escobar. Moss ended up spearing Kross and Santos in the corner. Moss ended up going for a spear onto Kross, but Kross moved out of the way. So Santos then delivered a flying knee onto Kross. He ended up falling to the outside. Ray and Santos Escobar were in the ring. Santos then delivered a dropkick to Ray. He ended up going for the cover, and Ray kicked out. Santos ended up grabbing Ray, but Ray got on the ring apron, ended up hitting him with a forearm. Ray ended up climbing to the top rope and delivered a hurricanrana off the top rope. And he ended up running towards Santos, but Santos delivered a backbreaker to Ray. Kross got into the ring. Santos ended up kicking Kross to the outside. Ray then ended up putting Santos on the second rope, and he ended up going for the 619, but Escobar ended up kicking him. So Escobar was on the ring apron. Ray then grabbed Escobar, climbed to the top rope. He jumped onto Kross on the outside, and Santos Escobar ended up delivering a suicide dive onto Moss on the outside. And as SmackDown came back from the commercial, Kross ended up throwing Ray across the ring. Kross ended up going for the cover, and Ray ended up kicking out. So we had Imperium. They were watching the match from the skybox. So Moss then delivered a shoulder tackle onto Kross and a shoulder tackle on Santos Escobar and Ray. Kross ended up running to the ropes, and Moss delivered a spine buster. He ended up going for the cover, and Kross ended up kicking out. So we had, at the end of the match, Ray delivered a 619 onto Karrion Kross. So Scarlett ended up tripping Ray up. Kross then delivered a right hand from behind to Ray. Santos got into the ring. He clotheslined Kross as both guys ended up falling to the outside. Moss was on the top rope. He ended up hitting Ray with the elbow, and he ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Madcap Moss ended up winning this Fatal 4-Way. And next week he will face Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. Why? What the fuck? Moss win this match? Moss facing Gunther next week? Moss is going to get squashed by Gunther. But out of the guys, Madcap Moss, why couldn't it be Karrion Kross or Santos Escobar? Seeing Karrion Kross and Gunther face off, that would have been great. Rey Mysterio? No. I don't see Rey and Gunther going at it. Santos Escobar? Yeah, maybe. I could see Santos Escobar. But Moss? Really? So yeah, Moss gets a shot at Gunther next week for the Intercontinental Championship. Awful. So then we went backstage. Paul Heyman was with Jey Uso. Paul Heyman ended up congratulating him. He ended up telling Jimmy that he was speaking with the tribal chief, and that Roman is proud of him. So he ended up telling Jimmy that next week, he needs an on-television perspective, and that he needs the Usos to stay home and watch it on TV. He ended up saying, because sometimes you see things on TV that you don't see when you're there live. So pretty much Roman wants the Usos to stay home next week. So pretty much that was how SmackDown ended. But overall, what an awful, horrendous SmackDown it was tonight. Outside of the Usos versus Strowman and Ricochet, everything else on the show was complete awful. Complete awfulness. Moving on to AEW Rampage, which Rampage was a skippable show tonight. We had the Blackpool Combat Club. We had Jon Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli, Wheeler Yuta. They ended up taking on the Butcher, the Blade, and Kip Sabian in a trios match. We had Ruby Soho end up taking on Marina Shafir, Marina Snorfear. We had Jungle Boy versus Ryan Nemeth. And the main event, the All-Atlantic Championship, was on the line where Orange Cassidy defended the title against Lee Moriarty. Yeah, sounds like a good Rampage this was. Rampage opened up tonight with the Blackpool Combat Club. Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta versus Kip Sabian, The Butcher, and The Blade. The match was okay. Was it great? No. Was there anything special about it? No. So Yuta was in the ring with The Butcher. Yuta dropping The Butcher with the back body drop. Kip Sabian then tagged in, ended up kicking Yuta in the gut. Kip Sabian ended up hitting Yuta with a stunner. So Sabian ended up taking in The Butcher. The Butcher ended up chopping at Yuta. The Butcher continued to chop away on Yuta, and then Kip Sabian was tagged back in. Yuta ended up knocking Sabian down and tagged in Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley ended up hitting Kip Sabian with some chops in the corner, and then Moxley ended up biting Kip Sabian in the forehead. Moxley ended up hitting Sabian with a huge drop step. Moxley ended up picking up Sabian to attempt a German suplex, but Moxley ended up taking Sabian down, ended up hitting Sabian in the chest with some elbow strikes. So the Butcher and the Blade end up grabbing Jon Moxley, and they dragged Moxley into the ring post. Moxley ended up going out to the floor as the Butcher and the Blade and Kip Sabian were triple teaming Moxley on the outside. And then as Rampage came back from the commercial, Moxley and Kip Sabian were on the top rope. Both Moxley and Sabian ended up going down. Moxley came down on his knee. So as Moxley ended up trying to tag, the Butcher ended up taking out Yuta. Moxley ended up taking in Claudio Castagnoli. Claudio ended up taking out the Blade with a drop kick. Claudio then ended up hitting the Blade with some uppercuts and then a lariat. Claudio ended up going for the swing on the Blade, and he ended up swinging the Blade, and the fans were counting away to how many swings that Claudio was swinging the Blade. Claudio ended up going for the pin, but the Butcher ended up breaking up the pin. Claudio then ended up getting the Blade in the sharpshooter, but it was broken up by the Blade. So Butcher and the Blade ended up double teaming on Claudio. Claudio was able to tag in Yuta. So Yuta was then tossed to the outside by the Butcher. Claudio then picked up the Blade, ended up dropping him. And we had Claudio end up going for the cover, but Kip Sabian ended up breaking up the pin. Kip Sabian ended up going on the top rope. He ended up coming down, and he got caught with a cutter by Moxley. And then Claudio delivered an uppercut to Kip Sabian. Claudio ended up going for the cover. And there you go. The Blackpool Combat Club, Jon Moxley, Claudio Castagnoli, and Wheeler Yuta ended up winning the match. Overall, it was an okay match. It was an okay trios match with the Blackpool Combat Club and Kip Sabian and the Butcher and the Blade. But really, nothing special happened. Nothing great. So then we saw a video package with Darby Allin. Darby Allin ended up talking about not fighting for the TNT Championship as long as Samoa Joe is the champion. So Darby was shown with Sting, and they ended up saying that they will go out in a blaze of glory. So that was what Darby Allin had to say. And then we went to a sneak peek of Renee Paquette speaking with Adam Cole, baby, which is going to be on Dynamite this Wednesday. So, we're going to be seeing Renee talking with Adam Cole. So, then we had Ricky Starks. Ricky Starks was talking about taking on the Jericho Appreciation Society. He ended up saying that he wants Dana Garcia. He's going to start off with Dana Garcia. So it's going to be Ricky Starks versus Dana Garcia. So that should be a good match there. Even though we saw it Wednesday on Dynamite. Even though it was part of a gauntlet match. So then we had the Impractical Jokers. There was only two of them. They ended up coming out with Floyd, Chris Jericho's bat. Never watched a full Impractical Jokers episode. I've seen clips here and there. You know, I know it's funny. They're here from Staten Island, but never watched a whole full episode of it, of the show. So they end up saying that it's much smaller. The bat is much smaller. But what they thought and how tiny the bat is. So they turned to Jericho. Jericho got up from the commentary table. He ended up saying that he may have a small bat, but he has big balls. So then the Jokers ended up telling Jericho, oh, it was all a joke, and that he could have Floyd back. Jericho then ended up saying that his friends are going to take Floyd back. So we had the Jericho Appreciation Society end up coming out, and Jericho ended up saying that the jokes are on them. And so the Jericho Appreciation Society ended up taking out both of the Impractical Jokers on the stage. The Jericho Appreciation Society then ended up grabbing a table. They ended up setting it up. Jericho left the commentary table. He picked up both of the Impractical Jokers, and he ended up putting them through the table. And pretty much that was that. Overall, did not care. Did not care for this. And then we saw Lexi Nair. Lexi Nair was interviewing Dustin Rhodes backstage. Dustin ended up saying that Swerve can talk about him all he wants. He ended up telling Swerve that he can't talk about the Dusty Rhodes or his brother or the rest of the family. But he can talk about Dustin specifically all he wants. So Dustin ended up telling Swerve he will not tarnish the Rhodes name. Dustin ended up saying that he doesn't like rejects and that he is coming for his soul and blood. So then we saw Parker Boudreaux and Trench. They end up coming in. And they end up attacking Dustin. And they end up grabbing the camera. And they end up tossing Dustin down on the ground. Dustin end up hitting a pallet. So Swerve end up standing on Dustin. And Swerve end up saying next week, it'll be him versus Dustin. And then he told Dustin, Happy Black History Month. And so that was that. So Swerve versus Dustin, should be a good match there. And then we saw Ruby Soho versus Marina Shafir, Marina Snorefear. This was awful. This was absolutely boring. If you've seen, Marina Shafir match in AEW, you know you're in for a snooze. So, Shafir was in control over Ruby Soho with an armbar. And of course, Vicky Guerrero was also out there. So, ended up getting out of the armbar. And then Shafir had Soho locked up. Soho ended up breaking the hold and tossed Shafir to the corner. And then tossed her down. So then as Rampage came back from the commercial, Ruby Soho ended up climbing up to the top rope. Marina Shafir was down. Soho ended up attempting a foot stomp, but Shafir moved out of the way. Soho ended up coming back, delivered the Destination Unknown on Shafir. She ended up going for the cover. And there you go. Ruby Soho ended up winning the match. The right one won the match. Post-match, Saraya ended up coming out with Toni Storm. And they got boos from the crowd. Saraya ended up telling El Paso to shut their mouths. So out of nowhere, Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, ended up coming out. She ended up attacking Saraya and Toni Storm. Jamie Hayter also came out. So we had a brawl between these four women. Ruby Soho was stuck in the middle of this. So we had officials end up trying to break it up. So Ruby Soho was just in the ring. She was wondering, what's going on, because she's stuck in the middle of this. Britt Baker ended up, saving Ruby Soho. So that was that. And then we went backstage, and we saw Lacey there. She was interviewing Mark Briscoe. So Mark Sterling ended up coming in. Mark Sterling ended up saying that he wants to represent Mark Briscoe. So Mark Briscoe ended up saying that he wants to be alone. Sterling then interrupts Mark Briscoe. He ended up saying that he thought maybe he wants to make money for the first time in his career instead of a stupid chicken farm. So Mark Briscoe ended up grabbing Sterling. Josh Woods ended up coming in. And pretty much that was that. But really, they're doing this shit. Mark Briscoe, is better off on his own. He doesn't need Mark Sterling. But overall, very meh this was. I mean, it was good to see Mark Briscoe, but Mark Sterling just ruined this segment with, "Oh, I want to represent you, Mark Briscoe. How about, you make money for the first time in your career." Man, can you imagine Mark Briscoe being accompanied by Mark Sterling? Talk about awfulness that would be. So then we had Jungle Boy versus Ryan Nemeth. Do I need to say who wins this match? If you said Jungle Boy, ding, ding, ding. There you go. Jungle Boy ended up winning the match. And he ended up hitting Nemeth with the elbow strike to the back. And that was that. Post-match, Brian Cage came out with Prince Nana. Cage ended up staring down Jungle Boy. And that was that. So it looks like Jungle Boy's next opponent will probably be Brian Cage. So then we went backstage and we saw Renee Paquette. Renee Paquette was talking with Hangman Page. Page ended up asking Renee why it's always her that interviews him. He ended up saying that he didn't like the ending to the match that he had. So Kip Sabian ended up coming in. He ended up asking Page why he's moaning. Page ended up telling Renee and Kip that he did not want to do this interview anyway. He ended up telling Kip Sabian he is leaving before he beats Kip Sabian's ass. So pretty much that was that. Kip Sabian, of course, was with Penelope Ford. Main event. Orange Cassidy versus Lee Moriarty. The All-Atlantic Championship was on the line. And this was a okay match here. Orange Cassidy ended up putting his hands in his pockets. Both Cassidy and Moriarty ended up blocking up. Moriarty locked up Cassidy and he grabbed Cassidy's glasses. Moriarty ended up putting Cassidy's glasses on. Cassidy then ended up getting Moriarty in a hammerlock. And Cassidy ended up getting his glasses back. Moriarty ended up reversing it, ended up locking up Cassidy, who got his hands in his pockets. Cassidy ended up going down as Moriarty attempted to stop Cassidy. Cassidy ended up getting up, ended up drop kicking Moriarty. Cassidy then ended up sending Moriarty to the corner, drived his head into the turnbuckle. Cassidy then climbed up to the top rope, ended up coming down on Moriarty. Moriarty ended up getting up, taking out Cassidy. He tossed Cassidy over the apron. So both Cassidy and Moriarty were on the apron. Moriarty ended up dropping Cassidy on his arm, on the apron. So Moriarty then grabbed Cassidy's glasses again, and he mocked Cassidy. So as Rampage came back from the commercial, Cassidy ended up coming back. Both men were in the ring. Cassidy took down Moriarty, ended up going for the cover, and Moriarty ended up kicking out. So we had Cassidy was in the corner. He climbed up to the top as Moriarty ended up stopping on Cassidy. Moriarty had Cassidy locked up, but Cassidy reversed that. So Cassidy ended up extending his elbow as he ended up coming down. Cassidy rolled to the outside. Moriarty distracted the referee as Stokely Hathaway. Stokely Hathaway tried to take out Cassidy, but Danhausen ended up stopping him. Cassidy then recovered. He ended up going up to the top rope. He took out Moriarty with a DDT. Cassidy attempted to hit the orange punch, but Moriarty ended up countering that with a lariat. Cassidy recovered, then hit Moriarty with a beach break, and he ended up going for the cover, and Moriarty ended up kicking out. Moriarty then ended up grabbing Cassidy, locked him up. Cassidy countered and rolled up Lee Moriarty, and there you go. Orange Cassidy ended up winning the match, retaining the All-Atlantic Championship. So, post-match, we had Orange Cassidy and Danhausen. They were in the ring. Satnam Singh came out on the ramp to Jeff Jarrett's music. Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal ended up coming into the ring from behind, and they ended up taking out Orange Cassidy and Danhausen with that fake Golden Globe Award. This is what this feud is on. A fake Golden Globe Award. So the best friends ended up coming out, Chuck Taylor and Trent Beretta. They attempted to help both Orange Cassidy and Danhausen, but you had Satnam Singh and Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett in there, taking them down. So the Acclaimed end up run down to the ring. The Acclaimed ran out with a chair, and we had Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett and Satnam Singh. They end up retreating out of the ring. No Sanjay Dutt here. So the Acclaimed end up, saving, Orange Cassidy, Danhausen, and the best friends. And that was how Rampage went off the air. Overall, this was a very skippable Rampage, in my opinion. Not a good night for wrestling, with both shows. But anyways, that's it for the Smackdown and AEW Rampage review. Thank you all for watching. Hope you all enjoyed this review. Give the video a thumbs up, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you all later.